There is a peculiar phenomenon that happens when the human mind is on the precipice of a massive breakthrough. It does not announce itself with a loud, waking epiphany or a sudden stroke of daytime genius. Instead, it creeps in through the back door of your consciousness when you are most vulnerable, speaking to you in the archaic language of dreams. In modern American culture, we are deeply conditioned to believe that success must be loud. We are taught from a very young age that ambition requires a megaphone. From the relentless hustle culture of Silicon Valley to the meticulously curated highlight reels on social media, the operative currency of our time seems to be noise. We are told to manifest our desires publicly, to speak our truth into the void, and to share every minor victory or fleeting goal with anyone who will listen. But what if this compulsion to broadcast our lives is the exact reason why so many people remain perpetually stuck in financial and spiritual mediocrity? Seneca, one of the most brilliant and pragmatic of the ancient Stoic philosophers, understood a profound truth about human nature and the accumulation of true wealth, a truth that modern psychology and neuroscience are only just now beginning to map out. He understood that power, whether financial, intellectual, or emotional, is generated in the dark and dissipated in the light. When you begin to align yourself with the frequency of actual, enduring wealth, your subconscious mind will begin to signal this transformation to you through your dreams. These are not mystical prophecies or supernatural visions telling you what lottery numbers to pick. They are high-level neurological readouts of your internal state. They indicate that your brain is rewiring itself, shedding the poverty mindset, and building the psychological infrastructure required to handle immense resources. But there is a catch, a massive, non-negotiable condition that comes with these nighttime revelations. When you have these dreams, you must remain absolutely, strictly silent. You must not tell your spouse at the breakfast table. You must not text your best friend about it. You must not post a cryptic quote about it online. You must swallow the realization and let it metabolize quietly in your own mind. Why is silence so critical? To understand this, we have to examine the biological trap of premature validation, a trap that the modern American lifestyle has essentially weaponized against us. When you set a goal, or when you feel a sudden surge of momentum, your brain produces a neurochemical called dopamine. Dopamine is not just the reward chemical, it is the molecule of motivation. It is what makes a predator chase its prey, and it is what makes an entrepreneur work 90-hour weeks to build a company. Nature designed dopamine to be released in small, steady drips as you take actual steps toward your goal, keeping you hungry and focused until the task is complete. But the human brain has a critical flaw, one that our hyperconnected society exploits daily. The brain has a very hard time distinguishing between the dopamine released from actually achieving a goal and the dopamine released from simply talking about achieving it. When you wake up from a profound, transformative dream that signals you are on the path to wealth, you will feel a massive surge of energy and inspiration. The immediate, reflexive urge will be to share it. You will want to look at someone and say, "I had this incredible dream. I feel like everything is about to change for me. I am going to be rich." The moment those words leave your mouth, and the moment the other person smiles and validates you, saying something like, "Wow, that is amazing. I believe in you," your brain registers that social validation as an actual accomplishment. It dumps a massive dose of dopamine into your system. You feel a rush of satisfaction, a sense of pride and arrival. But you have not arrived anywhere. You have not done any actual work. You have not built a business. You have not invested wisely. You have not solved a single real-world problem. You have simply tricked your neurology into feeling the reward of wealth without having to endure the sacrifice required to attain it. By talking about your impending success, you have essentially bled out the very fuel you needed to actually reach it. This is why you see so many people in coffee shops across the country loudly discussing their million-dollar startup ideas year after year, yet they never actually build anything. They are addicted to the cheap dopamine of the announcement, completely draining their reserves of the deep, quiet motivation required for the execution. Seneca wrote extensively about the concept of containing one's energy. He believed that a mind constantly seeking external validation is a mind that is fundamentally weak and easily manipulated by the opinions of the mob. To the Stoics, true wealth was not just the accumulation of gold or property, it was the total mastery of the self. It was the ability to possess immense power and resources without letting them corrupt your character or disturb your peace of mind. If you cannot even control the simple urge to open your mouth and brag about a dream, how on earth can you expect to manage the immense pressure, the complex decisions, and the inevitable betrayals that come with acquiring serious wealth? Silence is the ultimate incubator. Think of a seed planted in the fertile soil of the American Midwest. For that seed to germinate, to break out of its shell and push its roots deep into the earth, it requires total darkness. It requires isolation. If you were to dig up that seed every single day to show your neighbors how well it was growing, exposing it to the harsh light and the open air, the seed would wither and die. Ambition operates on the exact same biological principle. When your subconscious mind begins to present you with the 3 specific dreams we are about to discuss, it means a seed of profound transformation has been planted. Your perception of risk is changing. Your understanding of value is shifting. Your tolerance for discomfort is expanding. To speak of these changes prematurely is to dig up the seed. By remaining silent, you force that energy to stay internal. You force it to build pressure. Because it has no outlet through speech, it has no choice but to manifest through action. You will find yourself making sharper decisions, negotiating with more authority, and walking away from bad deals with a cold, calculated indifference that you never possessed before. The silence becomes a crucible that burns away your need for approval and hardens your resolve into steel. The dreams themselves are fascinating psychological phenomena. They are not the typical, chaotic fever dreams caused by a late-night meal or stress at the office. They are lucid, vivid, and they leave a lingering, heavy residue on your waking mind. They are archetypal, meaning they tap into the deep, universal symbols that humanity has used for thousands of years to represent power, transformation, and resource accumulation. When you start having these 3 dreams, it means the friction between your conscious desires and your unconscious habits has finally been resolved. You are no longer fighting yourself. The internal resistance that has kept you hovering in the middle class, constantly worrying about bills and living paycheck to paycheck, has collapsed. But here is the terrifying part, and the reason why so many people misinterpret these signals. The very first dream, the one that kicks off this psychological sequence of wealth accumulation, rarely feels like a positive experience. In fact, for most people, it arrives disguised as a nightmare. It is a dream of profound loss, of structures collapsing, and of being stripped down to absolute zero. Why would the subconscious mind signal impending wealth by showing you total ruin? What is the biological and psychological mechanism that makes destruction the prerequisite for abundance? And more importantly, what are the other 2 dreams that follow, confirming that your mind has fully locked onto the target of massive financial success? We are about to strip the mysticism away and look at the hard, undeniable architecture of the human mind. The first dream that signals an impending, massive accumulation of wealth is almost always the dream of the collapsing structure. You are standing in your childhood home, or perhaps a grand, unfamiliar mansion, and suddenly the walls begin to crack. The foundation gives way. The ceiling caves in. You wake up with your heart pounding, sweating, feeling an acute sense of loss and devastation. Most people immediately interpret this as a bad omen, a subconscious warning of impending financial ruin or a looming recession. But from the perspective of neurobiology and high-level psychology, this dream is the exact opposite. It is the ultimate green light. To understand why, we have to look at the research conducted by neuroscientists at institutions like Stanford University regarding neuroplasticity and the brain's mechanism for paradigm shifts. For your entire life, your brain has built a psychological infrastructure designed to keep you safe within a specific socio-economic bracket. If you were raised in a typical middle-class American environment, taught to go to school, get a steady job, contribute to a 401k, and fear debt, your brain has literally wired itself to view those parameters as survival. That mindset is the physical house you live in. But wealth, true generational wealth, requires a completely different psychological architecture. It requires the ability to leverage debt, to tolerate high degrees of ambiguity, and to detach your time from your income. You cannot simply lay this new framework on top of the old one. Just like you cannot build a 70-story skyscraper on the crumbling foundation of a Midwestern suburban ranch house, your brain cannot adopt the psychology of the elite while maintaining the safety mechanisms of the middle class. The dream of a collapsing house is your subconscious mind visually representing the destruction of your old belief systems. Your neural pathways associated with financial fear and limitation are actively being dismantled while you sleep. The anxiety you feel in the dream is simply cognitive dissonance, the temporary pain of outgrowing the psychological cage you were kept in. Seneca wrote that to build a fortress, one must first clear the rubble. By remaining completely silent about this dream, you allow the demolition to finish. If you panic and talk about it, your conscious mind will try to rebuild the old structure out of comfort. Let it fall. Once the old infrastructure is cleared, the second dream will inevitably follow. This is the dream of vast, moving water. You might find yourself navigating a surging river, standing on a shore watching a massive tidal wave approach, or trying to stay afloat in an endless, deep ocean. The water is rarely calm, it is powerful, intimidating, and kinetic. Throughout human history, from ancient mythologies to modern psychoanalysis, water has always been the universal symbol for emotion and the unconscious mind. But in the context of financial ascension, water represents something far more specific. It represents liquidity, resource flow, and the raw, unyielding physics of capital. Money, in the modern American economy, is not a static object. It is a current. It flows through markets, it cascades through real estate, and it evaporates in inflation. If you are terrified of the water in your dream, if you are drowning and thrashing wildly, it means you have not yet developed the emotional regulation required to handle massive capital. But if you observe the dream closely, you will notice a shift. As you inch closer to actual wealth, your role in the water dream changes. You stop drowning. You begin to swim. You might find a boat, or simply learn to float and move with the current rather than fighting it. This transition is deeply rooted in how the brain's amygdala, the fear center, processes risk. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania studying decision-making under extreme pressure have found that highly successful investors and operators do not possess a lack of fear. Rather, they have a highly developed ability to down-regulate their amygdala response when facing massive, dynamic variables. They do not view market volatility as a threat to their survival, they view it as an environment to navigate. When you dream of navigating treacherous waters successfully, your brain is signaling that it has finally upgraded its emotional shock absorbers. It is telling you that if $1 million were to suddenly flow into your life, you would not panic, you would not spend it impulsively out of a subconscious belief that it will disappear, and you would not let the immense pressure of holding capital crush you. You have learned to breathe underwater. And again, the rule of silence is paramount here. If you speak of this newfound confidence, you invite the doubts and fears of average people into your mind. Their poverty consciousness will act like a lead weight, dragging you back down into the depths. The final dream in this psychological sequence is perhaps the most profound and the most exhilarating. It is the dream of the hidden room. You are walking through a house, perhaps the one you currently live in, and you open a door you have never noticed before. Beyond the door is a vast, expansive room, or perhaps an entirely new wing of the building, filled with light, archaic objects, or simply empty space waiting to be used. The feeling in this dream is not fear, it is a deep, overwhelming sense of awe and discovery. You wake up feeling like your reality has literally expanded. This dream is a direct manifestation of the brain's default mode network operating at its absolute highest capacity. The default mode network is the neurological circuitry that becomes highly active when your mind is at rest, when you are not focused on the outside world, and when you are daydreaming or sleeping. It is the engine of creative synthesis. Most people live their entire lives in a state of chronic stress, locked into the fight or flight sympathetic nervous system, worried about the next mortgage payment or the rising cost of groceries. In this state of chronic stress, the brain is forced into tunnel vision. It can only see what is immediately in front of it. It literally filters out opportunities for wealth because it is too busy trying to survive. But when you have done the internal work, when you have let the old structures collapse and learn to navigate the emotional waters, your nervous system finally relaxes. The tunnel vision ends. Your default mode network lights up, connecting disparate pieces of information that your waking mind previously ignored. The hidden room in your dream represents the sudden realization of leverage. It is the discovery of an untapped market, a brilliant solution to a complex business problem, or a realization about a specific skill you possess that can be aggressively monetized. You realize that the resources, the space, and the potential were always there, hidden right inside your own environment. You were simply too stressed and too blind to see the door. It is the moment you realize that the American dream is not a lottery ticket, but a game of seeing what others do not. When you experience this final dream, the urge to speak will be more violent than ever. You will feel like you have discovered a glitch in the matrix, a secret code to generating wealth, and you will want to shout it from the rooftops. This is exactly where most intelligent people fail. They confuse the revelation with the execution. Seneca warned his students that a man who cannot keep his own counsel cannot be trusted with the wealth of the world. By keeping the discovery of the hidden room a secret, you preserve the kinetic energy of the realization. You prevent the dopamine from leaking out through your mouth. You force your brain to take that profound sense of discovery and apply it to waking reality. You will begin to quietly shift your investments, you will start building the business in the shadows, and you will sever ties with people who drain your focus, all without explaining yourself to anyone. Your silence becomes your competitive advantage. It makes you unpredictable, focused, and incredibly dangerous in the marketplace. You are no longer performing ambition for an audience, you are weaponizing it for yourself. But understanding the dreams and maintaining the silence is only the diagnostic phase. The subconscious mind has done its part, it has cleared the ground, tested the waters, and unlocked the hidden room. The ultimate question now is what you do when you open your eyes. How do you take this nocturnal rewiring and translate it into cold, hard capital in the physical world? How do you transition from the quiet incubator of the mind into the ruthless arena of the modern economy without losing your stoic composure? The bridge between the dream world and the bank account requires a very specific, uncompromising framework. Translating the nocturnal rewiring of your subconscious mind into tangible, generational wealth in the physical world requires an architectural execution that most people simply cannot stomach. You have had the dreams. The old structure has collapsed, you have learned to breathe underwater, and you have unlocked the hidden room. Now, you must build the stoic container required to hold the capital you are about to generate. This is not about waking up at 4 in the morning, drinking green juice, and writing empty affirmations in a leather-bound journal. Those are the hollow rituals of modern hustle culture, designed to make the American working class feel productive while they spin their wheels in the exact same socio-economic bracket year after year. True wealth creation, the kind that fundamentally alters the trajectory of your bloodline, requires a ruthless, systematic application of 3 specific protocols. The first actionable step in this framework is the implementation of an absolute information embargo. We have already established that talking about your goals leaks the dopamine required to achieve them. But in the hyper-connected, hyper-stimulated environment of the United States, silence is not just about keeping your mouth shut, it is about aggressively filtering what comes into your mind. You are operating in an economy that is essentially a massive casino, engineered by some of the smartest engineers in Silicon Valley to harvest your attention and sell it to advertisers. When you are on the precipice of a financial breakthrough, your focus is your most valuable asset. It is worth far more than the dollars currently in your bank account. Therefore, you must construct a digital and social fortress around your mind. This means entering a period of strategic isolation. You delete the applications that trigger your insecurities. You stop consuming the toxic, panic-inducing financial news that is designed to keep the masses terrified and paralyzed. You stop arguing with strangers on the internet about politics or culture wars. You reclaim the 4 to 6 hours a day you currently waste staring at a glowing rectangle, and you redirect that massive torrent of cognitive energy directly toward the hidden room you discovered in your dream. You work in absolute darkness. You become a ghost to the outside world, so that when you finally re-emerge, you are utterly unrecognizable. The second protocol is the strategic acquisition of asymmetric leverage. When your subconscious mind showed you the surging floodwaters and taught you how to swim, it was preparing you for the physics of leverage. In the traditional American dream model, you trade your time for a linear salary. You work 40 hours, you get paid for 40 hours. This is an equation designed for survival, not wealth. True wealth requires asymmetric upside, meaning you put in a fixed amount of effort once, and it pays you indefinitely. You must look at the hidden room you unlocked, whether it is a unique coding skill, a brilliant marketing angle, a deep understanding of real estate market inefficiencies in a specific zip code, or a network of high net worth individuals, and you must build a system around it. You do not just work harder, you build machinery. You write software that works while you sleep. You create media that reaches millions without additional cost of reproduction. You structure investments where your risk is capped at your initial capital, but the upside is mathematically infinite. You transition from being a cog in someone else's machine to being the architect of your own. You must approach this with the cold, calculated precision of a surgeon. There is no room for passion projects that do not generate capital. You are building an economic engine, and an engine requires cold, hard physics to run. The third and perhaps most painful protocol is the controlled demolition of your former environment. Seneca frequently wrote about the contagion of mediocrity. He warned that associating with people who are constantly complaining, who are terrified of risk, and who view themselves as victims of circumstances will inevitably infect your own mind. When you experience the 3 dreams of wealth, your internal vibration has irrevocably changed. But if you remain tethered to the same social circles, the same stagnant relationships, and the same comfortable routines, that new energy will be smothered. You will feel a profound, aching disconnect when you sit across from old friends who are still arguing about the same trivial dramas they were arguing about 5 years ago. You cannot bring everyone with you. This is the hardest truth of financial ascension. You must have the stoic resolve to let certain relationships naturally decay. You must stop attending the social events that drain your energy. You must curate your inner circle with a ruthlessness that will likely offend people. But you are not here to be liked by the masses, you are here to be free. Consider the case of a mid-level corporate strategist operating in the high-pressure ecosystem of Chicago. For a decade, he played the game exactly as he was taught. He climbed the ladder, bought the overpriced condo, leased the luxury car to signal his status, and lived in a constant state of high-functioning anxiety, secretly drowning in consumer debt. Then, the dreams began. The house collapsed. The waters rose. The hidden room appeared. Instead of running to a therapist to complain about his anxiety, or posting a long, emotional essay on LinkedIn about his burnout, he fell completely silent. He stopped going to the mandatory after-work happy hours. He stopped checking the stock market every 15 minutes. He sold the car, moved to a smaller apartment, and subjected himself to a brutal, self-imposed isolation. In the silence, the pressure built. He used the newly freed capital and the massive reserves of focus to identify a massive inefficiency in how his industry handled logistics. He didn't pitch the idea to his boss. He didn't look for a promotion. He built the software solution in the dark, working every night from 10 until 2 in the morning. When it was finished, he didn't launch it with a massive marketing campaign. He quietly approached 3 mid-sized competitors, proved the concept, secured the contracts, and handed in his resignation letter without a single word of explanation. He didn't celebrate. He just walked away. He weaponized the silence, and in doing so, he bought back his entire life. This is the ultimate payoff. The wealth you are building is not about buying more expensive things to impress people you secretly despise. It is about sovereignty. It is about waking up on a Tuesday morning and realizing that your time belongs entirely to you. It is about looking at the chaotic, noisy, terrified world around you and realizing that you have built an impenetrable fortress for yourself and your family. When the markets crash, when the panic sets in, when the noise reaches a deafening pitch, you will remain perfectly undisturbed. You will have achieved the ultimate luxury that Seneca wrote about, a mind that cannot be bought, a focus that cannot be broken, and a life that is truly, deeply your own. The dreams were just the invitation. The silence was the crucible. But the execution is the reality. If this message resonated with the quiet frequencies of your own mind, do not let this momentum dissipate. Leave a comment below with a single word to signify your commitment to the silence. Share this with that one rare individual in your life who is currently building their empire in the dark. Subscribe to Lucid Soma for more deep psychological architecture and elite strategies. Until next time, guard your focus, build your leverage, and above all else, remain relentless.